I'd like to welcome everybody out to the June 13th, 2025 special meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, thank you all for coming out this morning. Does any member have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest in regards to anything on the items on our agenda today? Please state.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Ms. Paulson. All right, moving on. Approval of draft agenda. We need to add to old business 6.4, the resolution confirming the ownership of the town of Sunset Beach of the area westward of West Main Street and 40th Street intersection in the town of Sunset Beach. Does any member of council have anything else?
I'd like to add one.
Go ahead, sir.
I'd like to add an additional approval of a draft and a submission of a resolution opposing leases for offshore drilling off our coast.
Anyone else? Not, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
No moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next up will be our public hearing. Grady, do you want to give a brief right quick, and then I'll open it up? Or look to open it up.
So, in terms of what would you like for me to give the overview on what we're here about or what the law says?
Just for the camera mostly, do the one that just tells them exactly what's going on so the people out there aren't up to date will know. I think most of the citizens here know exactly what's going on.
Well, I think as everyone here knows, you're up for consideration today concerning passing a levy, an assessment for the dredging that has been done. And last meeting we had, there was a lengthy PowerPoint that's also been available on the town's website about the history of the navigational dredging. Beyond that, I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have regarding the law on how to levy the assessment, what the statutes say, what the session laws and local laws say that give the town the authority to levy the assessment per parcel or by linear foot. Beyond just the general statute of 168-238, there's local session laws that give the town the authority beyond that general statute for purposes of today's consideration. Yes, sir.
So to be clear, that's the authority that the town has to make the assessment by parcel as opposed to by linear foot?
I'll walk you through the history if you'd like with the specific sites.
Please.
North Carolina General Statute 168-238, which has been cited by some folks who oppose a certain method of assessment, is the general statute titled Authority to Make Assessments for Beach Erosion Control and Flood and Hurricane Protection Works. However, from that general statute, and I'll give you the history, there was Session Law 2004-104, House Bill 1734, that allowed the town of Ocean Isle Beach to impose a canal dredging fee. That was done on July 15th, 2004. Then there was another Session Law 2005-47, House Bill 871, that added to Ocean Isle Beach the town of Emerald Isle under the ability to impose a canal dredging fee. That was May 17, 2005. Then there was Session Law 2005-90, Senate Bill 14, that added Holden Beach to the towns of Emerald Isle and Ocean Isle Beach to impose a canal dredging fee. That was June 21st, 2005. Last but not, well, second to last, but the ultimate bill from which the town drew or draws its authority is Session Law 2011-108, Senate Bill 145, This added the town of Southern Shores to have the ability to impose a canal dredging and maintenance fee and to assess for navigational projects. Section 1 of that session law reads fee-supported canal dredging and maintenance district. Section 2, imposition of annual fees for the dredging and maintenance of canals, both natural and concrete, within the corporate limits. But most importantly, Section 3 of this session law reads as follows. Fees. The fees imposed by the municipality may not exceed the cost of providing for the dredging and maintenance of the canals within the municipality. The fees shall be imposed on owners of each dwelling unit or parcel of property that could or does benefit from water access through the canal system within the municipality's corporate limits. And here's the key. And shall be made on the basis of one of the following. Number 1, the frontage abutting the project at an equal rate per foot of frontage, or number 2, per unit or parcel of property. So at this point, Sunset Beach hasn't been mentioned. And by the way, that was June 4th, 2011. Session Law 2013-69, Senate Bill 268 is when the town of Sunset Beach was added to impose a canal dredging and maintenance fee. Section 1 gives you the entire history of the session laws I just read. 2004-104, 2005-47, 2005-90, 2011-108. Reads as rewritten. This act applies only within the municipal boundaries of the towns of Emerald Isle, Holden Beach, Ocean Isle, Southern Shores, and Sunset Beach, and then incorporates all of those session laws as well under Section 2. And that was effective June 10th of 2013. So based upon that, that's where you draw your ability to impose your fees or the dredging district, and you can assess it per parcel or you can assess it per linear foot. It is entirely within the council's discretion for either way. No matter what you do, those who support per linear foot, folks who are per parcel are not going to like it. Vice versa, the same thing is going to happen. So you have the discretion to decide, do you want to do it per linear foot or per parcel? And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this point. Yes, sir.
When did council make a decision on per parcel?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah.
September of 2020.
September 2020, right? Okay.
Any more questions?
If we assess based on linear feet, how much money we're going to come up short?
I have no idea of that question either. The answer to that question.
And who would end up paying the difference? Would it come from the general fund? In other words, every taxpayer in Sunset Beach?
I believe if it's per linear foot versus per parcel, the same area of land is going to be encompassed either way. Per linear foot could change what each individual property owner could have to pay, because if you have a parcel that's 100 feet wide abutting the canal or the navigational channel versus a lot that's 50 feet wide, then the parcel that's 100 feet wide is going to be assessed more because their lot is bigger. Now, you know, I don't know all the details of everybody's docks and everything that goes on in here. I'm familiar with the area. I'm familiar with the Coastal Area Management Act, Division of Coastal Management, and all those things. But my understanding is, regardless of the size of the parcel in the town of Sunset Beach that is abutting a navigational channel that's been subject to this dredging, every parcel is restricted and limited to one dock per parcel. Why do I make that point? Because it does not matter the size of the parcel. They're not getting an advantage over a smaller parcel. they could get an advantage if a 100-foot parcel, just hypothetically, if a 100-foot parcel were allowed to build 2 docks versus a 50-foot parcel that can only build 1 dock, then that might sway council's perception of what would be more equitable of doing it per parcel or per linear foot, right? Because then a bigger lot stands to gain more by having 2 docks versus someone with 1 dock. But my understanding is everyone has the ability to build 1 dock and 1 dock only. Should that change in the future, then council has the discretion under the law I just cited to reevaluate and reassess in the future, making changes to make your maintenance and dredging fee district charged in a different way or assessed in a different manner. And I believe there's also 2 parcels. You got the Town Park and Majestic Oaks Park of the town of Sunset Beach, and those parcels, the town has assessed itself for those parcels, and that money has been backed out of what's being collected from the private property owners. So the town has assessed itself based on those 2 public parks, as I understand it.
My point being that there are plenty of people here that don't even go to the beach. There's people that never go on the water. They should not pay for the dredging.
So there's a law that there is a law that prohibits assessing people who are not abutting the navigational channels. You cannot assess someone on the mainland who doesn't have property abutting a navigational channel that was subject to a dredging project. So anybody that's that says, well, let's assess everybody in the town, can't do that. It's illegal to do so. Yes, sir.
One more item, and I think this is primarily Lisa, maybe. You mentioned a dredging district fee. Why hasn't the town already set up a dredging district fee?
Council hasn't taken action to develop the plan that will go along with that district
Do we have
or districts.
Do we have permission to do that do we have to finish this dredging project first before we can set up that district?
That was the intention of the council.
And do we have the authority to do that, the legal authority to set up that district once we
Yes.
finish this dredging?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Anything else?
So we've addressed the legality of the town making the council making the decision to do it by parcel, which was done in 2020. We've addressed why we can't, the legality of why we can't charge all of the town residents to do this. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions?
And you don't have to have a legal basis for choosing per parcel or by linear foot. The legal basis is in the law I just read, allows this council to choose either option that you believe to be the best fit for your town. In your discretion, you're the legislators, you get to make those decisions. That's why you get paid the big bucks, right? But you know, again, it doesn't matter to me whether you do it per parcel or per foot. I know there's folks that do care about that. I'm just telling you what the law is.
Yeah.
Nothing else? Can we move on to our public hearing? Do I have a motion to open the public hearing? Do I have a second? Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is now open. Anyone like to speak? There'll be 3 minutes is what they give me to get with you. If you will, state your name and address after you do that, then I'll start. Just be respectful at the end to try to tie it up, please.
Steve Britt, 313 Stokes Drive. Mr. Richardson, I listened to you talk about the laws about charging. I told in the last meeting, I don't have a problem paying. It's the quality of work. This Memorial Day, 6, 7 foot from our dock at low tide is pure mud. I don't have a problem paying for it if you're going to do quality work. We were the last canal at low tide. Tommy over there, he's the last one. You couldn't even get him walking. I mean, it's nothing but mud. I don't understand. I mean, you sit up here and talk about we can charge. But who's in charge of the quality of work you do? I mean, those guys come in there on a traco. He had a couple of days and left. I don't mind paying the money. I don't care if you charge by the foot, by the job, whatever you do. Just give me some quality work. I want to know who's in charge of the quality. That's what I want to know. If I'm going to pay for something, I want it. You buy a car, you want the car. You don't want to walk and pay for a car. If I'm going to pay for dredging, I want dredging where I can use my canal. That's all I ask for. I need somebody to explain to me why I don't have quality work and I'm fixing to pay for it. I mean, you asking for my money, tell me, one of you give me a reason that I don't have quality work. That's what I want to know. Why can't I use my canal when I'm paying for it? I don't have a problem paying for it. I just want to be able to use it if I pay for it. So I'm waiting for an answer. I need an answer.
Well, at this point, in this stage of the public hearing, it's not for council to answer those questions. Council can address those statements and contentions after the public hearing ends while they're discussing and debating the issue. Obviously, I didn't oversee the dredging. I didn't go out there and dredge it. So in terms of the quality of work, CAM has signed off on it. Corps of Engineers has signed off on it. If council believes that there's been a contractor who has failed in their obligations under this dredging to do it the proper way, then council would have the ability to authorize me to look into it and file suit if they wanted to. Until that decision's made, I'm just, at this point, you've made your statement on the record. Council, I'm sure, has taken notes about these so that they can address it with you and everybody else in here.
There's no answer.
At the end of the public hearing, there may be an answer. Right now is not the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who would like to read next? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Tim Newton. I live at 1217 Canal Drive. Little backstory. My wife and I, we met, Sunset Beach is very special to us. We met as 15-year-olds on the pier, got married as 25-year-olds on the pier, been married for 37 years, and this is our most special place. We looked to buy a house. We live on a lake back home. Looked to buy a house on the water. Opportunity came about to have a house on canal. When we were looking at buying it, the realtor we worked with said, hey, there's talk of dredging. That'll enhance your property values, potentially. Definitely going to make boating a possibility for us. We boat back home. And in the letter that, like this gentleman, who I thought, very simple question. For me, it's not the issue of the amount. I'm fine to pay my share. But I question, as a business owner, who cut the check? Who released these funds, however much it was, to this company without somebody going out? You said it wasn't you. I understand that. But somebody failed miserably in overseeing this project, because just to get a little sliver down the middle, my dock is the same. I mean, half the, we were looking at having a dock down here, and now that's definitely not, our boating experience is all but history now. And in the letter, it says that for said improvement, I want to say it's the second paragraph. So my question is, what improvement? If each of you would go out, and maybe you have, I don't know. I have a hard time believing that you have, would go out and look at, and you don't have to go low tide. I mean, forget low tide. I mean, halfway, my dock is sitting on mud. And I know this is not y'all's personally responsibility, but you're the authorities that we're holding accountable. We're paying our tax dollars to. And again, the issue is not to pay or not to pay. charge me by linear foot, charge me by partial. I don't care. But like this gentleman said, I'd like to get, if I'm gonna buy a car, I'd like to have all the tires on it too. This is a joke in my opinion, and I say that as respectfully as I can. You would feel the exact same way. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to ask any of y'all if y'all live on a canal like us, or however many of us are. You would feel the exact same way. My grandkids, we have our second week of June. We bring them all down. Can't get out hardly and play. I can barely get my kayak out because it's just mud. It's nasty. It's not safe. And again, my issue is who oversaw this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Let's come on up, sir.
Good morning. My name's Ed Huggins. My wife and I have the house on 431 6th Street, and Robert Bug, our neighbors there at 129 6th Street, asked me to read some of his comments. And the subject is request for consideration of reduction in dredging assessment to Canal A. Thank you all for your thorough and thoughtful explanation of the May 14th Town Council meeting on the history of the dredging efforts and all that you do and the others did before you to get the dredging accomplished. Now comes the time to figure out how we're going to pay for it, and I wish to express a few thoughts on that consideration. He wanted me to read items 3, 4, 5, and 6. The town built itself as only one unit when it was over 1,800 linear feet of land that would also benefit from the dredging, the town park, and the Majestic Park. The town should pay its fair share for the total dredging of at least 34 units. That's 1,800 feet divided by 50. That's only fair. And regardless of the 2019 taxable neighborhood defined as who and how the dredging would be paid for. Robert also added that yes, they're able to get their 17-foot, 60 horsepower fishing boat to the dock in May. Know that they were unable to get the boat out of the muck or into the canal about 2 hours before and about 2 hours after low tide. We understand that the approved dredging plan was a navigational dredging, but as the lawsuit contends, if we cannot access the canal, we do not benefit, thus we shouldn't be forced to pay for it. Below, please find the 2 pictures and of the docks that he took, and I believe you've got the paperwork for that. Furthermore, it's our belief that the dredging actually made conditions worse due to the shifting of the mud from the banks under the dock into the center of the canal where the material was removed. The area dredged in front of their property was more narrow and shallower than the dredging anywhere else. Our assessment should be accordingly. Finally, know that I appreciate all that you've done for our community. I acknowledge that you're volunteers for your job and that the decisions sometimes are not easy, nor will they please everyone. I simply urge you to make the decision that's fair for all involved. The $7,833.05 is no small amount of money. A decision to add the town's land holdings to the taxable neighborhood and to prorate the assessment for those that benefited less than others would likely save the town money, depending on the lawsuit and trying to collect, and inadvertently foreclose on those that will not or cannot pay the assessment. And those are Robert Bug's words. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor,
Yes, sir.
council members, neighbors. My name is Dave Morselli. I live at 1108 Riverside Drive. I'm here today to respectfully request that the town council postpone their vote on the special assessment. In short, because it's not reasonable, it's not lawful, and it's not fair. Furthermore, it contradicts your state grants application's claim that, quote, everyone will benefit, the residents, visitors, businesses, and the town. So let's talk about why the special assessment's not fair. Quite simply, because it creates economic winners and losers. So who are the winners? The winners are those homeowners whose lots have dredge lengths of greater than 50 feet. The winners are those homeowners with lots not currently included in the assessment, but whose lots drain stormwater and sand into the dredged area. The beachfront homes between 5th and 12th Streets, as well as the entire Sunset Beach community, as that's where the dredged sand was deposited. The town of Sunset Beach, gentleman said 1,800 linear feet. I've got 1,200 linear feet, but Sunset Beach and their 1,200 linear feet of canal front. That said, everyone who visits the beach, everyone who takes a boat to the inlet or canals, everyone who casts a fishing line, in short, everyone on the island benefits from this project. And just like it was represented on the state grant application, this, and I quote, benefits the residents, visitors, businesses, and the town. So those are the winners. Who are the losers? The losers are those families with lots that have a dredge length of 50 feet or less. In effect, with this special assessment, these families are subsidizing the cost of the project for everybody else. It doesn't seem reasonable, and it's not only reasonable, it's unlawful. I know Mr. Richardson mentioned the taxing by parcel, and sure, you can do that, but only when the special tax assessment area is set up. That has not been done. The proper way to do it is by linear feet or by square footage of the lot. Under this proposed plan, families like my own will pay close to $8,000 for this dredging. We've got 50 feet of dredge front. The town has over 1,200 linear feet. At close to $8,000, that's almost $160 per linear foot. That's $192,000 that we're paying for the town. Doesn't seem fair. So not only is it not fair, it's not right. Now, we understand caution, and we understand that there was a missed opportunity to talk to the taxpaying citizens. I was disappointed that the guidance was not to speak to us. Doesn't seem right. There was a study for Edelman Trust Barometer in 2024, Trust in Government section. 74% of respondents say government leaders lose trust when they fail to engage in open dialogue. We're willing to find a fair solution. We want to do it. We just need to chat. So what do we want to avoid? We want to avoid a lawsuit. We don't want to go to court. We don't want a lawsuit. That'll be costly legal fees for the town and for us to litigate this matter. It's expensive. It's time consuming. We don't want it. We want to avoid the potential for a formal state agency to start looking at the grant applications. Did we say something wrong on that? That's not good. That could come back to bite you if we need funds when storms come. So what do we want? Good news is this is easy. We respectfully ask that you table the vote today and talk to us about a couple solutions. One solution we believe is fair is that 50% of the project cost covered by the general fund, 50% by the taxpayers in the town on a linear foot basis. Appreciate your consideration. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, sir. Let's let this one guy, he's been standing for, let him speak, and then you come next, please. I've seen you stand there, so come on up, sir.
Mayor, members of the town council, my name is Mark Kramer. I reside at 902 North Shore Drive West. Good to see you again. I'm pleased to be here again this week to make a statement on behalf of the Sunset Beach Taxpayers Association. First, another reminder, 2 years ago when the town refused to lower the tax rates after the 2023 evaluation, the current budget documents show the town received a $1.62 million increase, 63% more in real property taxes due to that 2023 revaluation. The SBTA strongly supported a reduction in the tax rate at that time. That did not happen. The upshot of this is that the ad valorem property taxes paid by Sunset Beach taxpayers will have gone from $2.8 million in FY 22-23, just 2 years ago, to $4.59 million in this current fiscal year. That is a huge increase, and it's growing every year in terms of real property taxes. Second, in the FY 25-26 budget you just adopted, general fund revenues are projected to increase year over year by 14.6%, $1.56 million. And that's really very little of that is property tax increase. It's all other revenues. As we discussed last week, it's critical when considering the town's financial condition to recognize the town's general fund balance currently is at 94 to 95% of the annual budget. This means the town has approximately $2.8 million more in the general fund balance than is needed to meet the 75% of the annual budget goal. There was some uncertainty last week about where this goal came from. Well, the town council set the 75% goal in its July 25, 2023 letter to all of your taxpayers, justifying not reducing the tax rate. That's where the 75% came from most recently. On your agenda this morning is closing out the dredging fund. The write-up on that matter indicates that because the project came in below budget, the town now has close to $1 million in excess funding it had set aside from the general fund for the dredging project. So what's the town proposing to do with that extra $1 million? Put $725,000 into the capital project fund for Majestic Oaks Park and $259,000 in the capital reserve fund. If this is done, the town will then have at least $3.5 million more in the general fund balance than is needed to meet the 75% goal, plus approximately $550,000 in a new capital reserve fund you set up a couple of years ago. The town would then have a general fund balance not of 95%, but over 100% of the annual budget. There seems to be no limiting principle on how much the town of Sunset Beach will take from its taxpayers and then spend. In light of these facts, we ask you again to lower the tax rate 2 or 3 cents to return some of this money to your taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
It's,
Good morning. Kevin Armstrong, 806 Riverside Drive. Should the town council approve the current special assessment and only charge the canal families, it appears that the $5 million state grant for the dredging project was obtained through false statements. April 14th, 2020, to secure funding for the dredging project, the town prepared a state grant application. Here are excerpts from that application. The project seeks to enhance and protect navigation access to residents and guests to the waterways on the east side of Sunset Beach. Restoring the navigation depths will provide sustainable recreation boating opportunities to visitors and residents of Sunset Beach, while also helping safeguard the small rental businesses and properties values at risk within this area. The maintenance dredging project will also provide a management tool for future land development through the establishment of pier head alignment. The reduced navigable pathway has already impacted the Sunset Beach local economy, as annual renters have declined to return to the vacation destination due to the lack of recreational boating access. The deteriorating conditions have become common knowledge for some potential renters and local fishermen who have historically enjoyed the opportunity and environment offered by Sunset Beach. Rental agencies are now notifying potential renters interested in boating of the limited access. If left unmanaged, the continued shoaling will bring greater impacts on investment and quality of life for the residents and visitors of Sunset Beach, as navigation access will be completely severed. Dredging will promote recreational fishing and navigation in this area, which helps sustain the local economy of Sunset Beach. On May 15th, Joe Cantoni and I actually met with Lisa and discussed this, and she agreed that the town in general benefited from this dredging. On September 15th, the town published a FAQs for the dredging project. It says the dredging project will restore navigation access. Restoring the navigation depths will provide sustainable recreational boating opportunities to visitors and residents of Sunset Beach, while also helping safeguard the small rental businesses and property values at risk within the project area. The state grant was awarded with the understanding that the dredging project benefited, quote, the residents, visitors, businesses, and the town. The town would not have qualified for the state grant if its application had stated that only 320 canal families would benefit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Steve Gamble, 1204 Riverside. Before I start, I sent you all an email earlier in the week, and I wonder if I could submit it today, so it just becomes part of the permanent record. So I'm going to give a skinny down version of this, and we're going to split it in half between my wife, Marlene, and I to keep it at 3 minutes each. First of all the information I will reference was from your 139-page town council document, as well as information gathered just from doing Google searches. The main takeaway I had was this dredge was always intended to benefit the entire community. Reading your own language submitted to state and federal agencies confirms this. First, a little background. From 2010 to 2016, the only document I could find requesting a dredge was a 2010 petition that the canal owners did not support. It then makes absolutely no sense to spend $8 million, do hundreds of hours of work, submit appeals, have accusations of misconduct by council members for something that only benefited 324 property owners. I would also add, as Kevin just said, does anyone think the state would be willing to spend $5 million to benefit only 324 property owners? Then in 2016, 6 years after the failed petition and 5 years after you all began, then Mayor Forrester said, why don't we do a survey and ask the affected owners if they're in favor of this? Well, good for Mayor Forrester. Unfortunately, I can find no record of this survey ever being done. Then in 2017, at a town meeting, Mayor Forrester said, if we don't do this, we run the risk of no longer being viewed as a water-based community. Mayor Pro Tem Scott then commented, this could negatively affect property values if we lose our status as a water-based community. That clearly explained why the town pursued this effort despite never receiving a request to do it. It was for the benefit of the whole community. Then, as Kevin said, in 2020, the state grant application says the following. 1, this project seeks to enhance and protect navigation for residents and guests while helping to safeguard small rental businesses. 2, the reduced navigation pathway has already negatively affected the local Sunset Beach economy. And 3, the dredging will promote recreation fishing and navigation, which in turn will help sustain the local Sunset Beach economy. See a trend? These comments, straight from the state grant application, clearly establish the entire Sunset Beach community as the primary stakeholder. Now, just one more comment on the project itself, talking about what these gentlemen said. By proceeding with a navigational dredge, it greatly minimized any benefit to canal owners. I ask you or anyone truly interested to walk these canals during low tide. Now, I called and had a conversation with the town administration at Ocean Isle Beach, and they're considering a navigational dredge. And they are sending out a letter before they do the dredge, and it says, a navigational dredge may or may not improve access to your docks. Had you asked this community, we're going to do this $8 million dredge, but it may or may not improve access to your docks, what do you think the response would have been? Okay. At this point, let me ask Marlene to come up and address some cost issues and then a proposal we have. Thank you.
Sir. Thank you, sir.
Oh, well, I love my phone, but apparently not today. All right, where are we at? Okay, so let's just look at the costs.
If you will, just for the record.
Marlene
Thank
McDonough,
you.
1204 Riverside Drive.
Thank you.
So let's look at the costs now. Your attorney at the hearing in Bolivia and Miss Anglin both held Holden Beach and Ocean Isle Beach as towns that have successfully done dredging projects. A quick comparison would show the following. If you looked at the cost per linear feet at Holden Beach for their most recent dredging, $3.70. Well, this is the cost of the assessments for these towns that they assess the residents on their canals. Linear feet, $3.74 for Holden Beach, $7.18 for Ocean Isle Beach, and we don't know what that cost is going to be for Sunset Beach, but those are reasonable charges, annual, at an annual rate per linear feet. The amount of the dredging that was done during the last 3 dredges on those islands, the cost per cubic yards for Holden Beach was $30.76. For Ocean Isle Beach, $33.61, And now the Sunset Beach costs per cubic yard are going to be $85.55. Dredging is all different, we understand, but it just puts the Sunset Beach costs way out of line with what the OIB and Holden Beach costs have been most recently. So we find that very startling. So we have a proposed solution, and I kind of split it up into two parts. The first is to separate the three different cost areas that were involved in this dredge. The first area was the Marys and Turtle Creek. There is absolutely no explanation of how Marys and Turtle Creek would benefit anyone on the island. It is, after all, on the mainland. Clearly, the primary beneficiary of that area of the dredging was Town Park and the people who use it, which again is all of Sunset Beach. Another thing to do would be is that half of the beach compatible sand should be assigned to a beach renourishment project as opposed to a dredging project. 51,000 of the 90,000 cubic yards that was dredged was beach compatible, and it was placed offshore to help with the erosion. This is a clear example of how the entire town benefited from the dredging. In the town, in your own words, on the application to CAMA, the words were, the town experienced negative erosion to the beach and dune system of its central shoreline. And this data was corroborated by CAMA, or the Division of Coastal Management. They supported that data and supported the consensus that there's erosion between 3rd and 13th or 5th and 13th Street. The sand was put out on the ocean. Everyone benefits from the fact that that's going to help with the erosion, not just the canal homeowners. The last thing would be to apportion the balance of the 324 canal owners and charge by linear foot. This would alleviate the obvious conflict of interest that the town has with the large frontage of Town Park and the future frontage of Majestic Park. It would also, if you charge by linear foot, it would also return the process to how the dredging was charged in 2002 and again was originally passed by the council in 2018. Just in closing, in this proposal, the canal owners will still pay for over half of the project, plus their own proportional share for any money coming from the general fund. So the canal owners would still be paying for half of the project. So we ask for a fair reading of what has been said and done, and we appreciate the hundreds of hours that have been spent by this council, by previous councils, but we just think that somewhere along the way, the original purpose was lost. The purpose is to benefit everyone in Sunset Beach and to keep it as a thriving water-based community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Keep them to 3 minutes.
Good morning. Kenneth Russ, my wife Lisa and I own 309 Stokes Drive, which is the end of Turtle Creek. We are the mouth of the intercoastal waterway for Turtle Creek. So
I didn't get your address, sir.
309 Stokes Drive.
Thank you.
So the town certainly has the prerogative on how they do the assessments. I won't argue that. What I would offer to the town is a suggestion based upon a little bit of history. As the property owner at the mouth of Turtle Creek, we've owned that property for 15 years. When we purchased the property, we discovered in the house about 12 inches of documents for the dredging that has taken place on Turtle Creek going back to the late 70s, 1978 specifically. We actually are in possession of the permits from the 78 and the 2005 dredging of Turtle Creek. In 2014, I approached both CAMA and the Corps of Engineers with a face-to-face meeting in Wilmington to do just that, which is redredge Turtle Creek. It did not meet, anyway, it was, as Steve says, it was unusable at low tide at that time. I was told at that time that Sunset Beach had approached the state to receive the opportunity to do the dredging, and why would we pay for something that the town would be doing? So we backed off. A decade later, the dredging comes through. Y'all dug a ditch down the middle. We have no more access than we had. But one note, which is a solution for the town from the Corps of Engineers from my meeting with them in 2014, if you really want to open the canals, if you really want to open the creek, you will not do it with one dredge. You have to come back in 3 to 5 years and dredge it again to get the material that slides back in. And if that were done, then most of us that we can see the water at low tide, we just can't get to it, we would have access to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Jane O'Brien, and myself and my husband, we own 1008 Riverside Drive. The current special assessment on just 320 families is both unlawful and unfair. Furthermore, it fails to reflect the town's representation made to secure the state grant. The canals that are on the east side of the island serve the town of Sunset Beach by removing stormwater waste from the island. The stormwater drains directly into the canal and moves the runoff from the island. It deposits silt and sand in the canal for the island itself. I fail to see how this is the responsibility of 320 families living on the canals. The people who live on the canal homes are responsible for maintaining the bulkheads and keeping the canals operational. They have to be stewards for the canal by protecting the seagrass and the oysters that live there. I do this willingly for the privilege of living there, but to say I am responsible for the maintenance of public waterways that serve the public is just not fair. The canal would be there if the houses were not. Actually, the canals were there with the minimal construction on Riverside Drive at the time of the previous dredging. The canals are public waterways. The fact that the frontage of all the canals became the responsibility of 320 families when some families were excluded from the charges is also unfair and unjust. It is not reasonable or right to ask us to fund the remainder of the dredging project when we have to pay for areas that are not even canal frontage. This project was proposed to open the navigational canals, put the sand back on the beach, and support the decline in tourism. If this is a public project, why are we requested 320 families to pay for it? When you applied for the government grant, did you tell them the remainder of the project would be the responsibility of 320 parcels of land that may or may not have been dredged? The government grant proposal reflects that the measuring be done in linear foot and not by parcels of land. So we have another conflict. If we are to be charged, it needs to be in linear foot, not parcels of land. While people on Sunset Beach visit, etc., may not use the canal, it is available to them, just like the parks, the boat ramps are available to me if I wish to use them. I pay my taxes for the growth and maintenance of Sunset Beach Township. These canals are part of Sunset Beach Township. The dredging project serves the citizens of Sunset Beach. It does not give me or my neighbors any additional benefit, as it is a public waterway which we have no control over. Due to the high values of these homes, we already pay premium taxes with no more benefit. We cannot be expected to pick up the entire bill for the project that benefits all of Sunset Beach. We respectfully request that the Town Council postpone the vote on the special assessment until a lawful solution based on linear footage or square footage and consistent with the town's representation in the state grant is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ignacio Marino. I live at 802 Riverside. The current special assessment on just 320 canal families is both unlawful and unfair. Furthermore, it fails to reflect the town's representations made to secure the state grant, as numerous other citizens have stated. The health and maintenance of our canals is not just the responsibility of a select few. The main objective of these canals extends beyond individual property rights and benefits. These waterways and their accessibility contribute significantly to our local economy by attracting visitors. These visitors enjoy our town's amenities, spend money at our businesses, and ultimately increase revenue for the community. Your grant application said so itself. Furthermore, the town is imposing this burden irrespective of water frontage. Changing the calculation and choosing to unlawfully assess per parcel rather than linear feet is an unfair burden on most property owners. Where is it equitable that the town spends weeks dredging Mary's Creek and does not absorb the cost equitably? That cost should be absorbed through the general fund. Does not the entire town benefit? How is it the benefit that should only be paid by 320 canal property owners? The two public parks have over 1,000 feet of water frontage. These parks feature fishing access, kayaking access, and general utilization of the waterways by the entire community. Mr. Corbett, we met with you some months back and you indicated that the only way you were able to convince prior council members to go along and vote for dredging was to have the cost paid by canal property owners. Therefore, you stated you were morally bound not to change your vote. Yet, you have all changed the guidelines themselves. This went from a maintenance dredge to a navigational dredge, less benefit to canal properties. It went from linear feet assessment to per parcel. Again, less benefit, more cost to typical families. And it included town properties with vast waterfront areas benefiting the entire town, not just the canal properties. The cost should be shared across the community as a whole, given the widespread benefits. This can be achieved without assessing anyone any more money. Instead, of increasing the town's expenditures by 15% over the 2024 budget, much of it in capital expenditures, the council can move to be more fiscally constrained and not fund more spending on the backs of canal property owners. We respectfully request that this town postpone the vote on the special assessment until a lawful solution based on linear footage and consistent with the town's representations to the state grant is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sat there so long, my legs got stiff.
Could you say that again, please?
I said, I'm sorry.
Just would you name and your address?
Okay, Susan Gentry, 250 Shoreline Drive, East. I've been up here before at the last public hearing, and I'm going to say some of the same things, but these folks have made a great case for how to charge and the benefit to the town, so I'm not going to reiterate that. What I am going to talk about is Turtle Creek specifically. We bought our house in 2023. We had no knowledge of the dredging, anything about that. So we kind of came into it thinking, when somebody mentioned that there was going to be a dredging, we were real excited that we would get to use our dock because we knew that we couldn't use it the way that it was. I'm not sure about this, but I kept hearing the word allowed to charge, but I did not see any words that said they were required to charge. So maybe I missed that. But I wanted to talk about Turtle Creek specifically because if you followed the rules from the state, from CAMA, from all the authorities having jurisdiction, then you would have realized when you got those rules that nothing you were allowed to do to Turtle Creek was going to benefit anybody on Turtle Creek. It does not benefit anybody in the town. The dredging that occurred in Turtle Creek, which is literally just a little 1x2 ditch down the middle, at low tide, we can see that there is nothing there. The birds are literally walking through the ditch. That didn't benefit anybody. It didn't benefit the town. It didn't benefit any of us. So that project should have been dropped. There was no point to do it. There was no point to pay for it. So I do not feel like we should be assessed at all. We did not get the ability to navigate in our canal. We did not get an aesthetic benefit. We did not get a safety benefit. We got nothing from this dredging. And as I said before, I don't pay for things that don't benefit me in some way. It doesn't have to mean that it has to be all the ways, but if it doesn't benefit me or the town in some way, I don't intend to pay for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Donna Hewitt, and I live at 1306 Riverside Drive. In 2002, the town of Sunset Beach assessed canal front families under state statute using a lawful and statutory basis of linear footage. There was no broad-based support for the dredging project. Communications we received indicate that the dredging project was driven primarily by the personal interest of a small group of property owners, including former and current town council members, seeking deep water access for recreational boating rather than reflecting the interest of the broader community of canal families. In 2010, a petition was spearheaded by council to the canal families to dredge the canal, and it was soundly rejected. 2010 to 2020, it's evident from the town council meeting minutes that for several years, the council attempted to create a special tax district similar to those established on Ocean Isle Beach and Holden Beach. Such a district would have helped to alleviate the financial burden on the affected homeowners. The town council never followed through. It is now clearly unfair to impose this costly burden on just a few families, especially given the council's prolonged failure to act. 2018 to 2019, a survey advised and not done. Mayor Weiss that recognized that a lot had changed in nearly 10 years since the dredging was proposed. Many of the canal families being asked to pay for the dredging had no opportunity at all to have their voices heard. They did not own the land or their homes. Many homes simply did not exist. The mayor at the time suggested a survey to see if the canal owners still wanted the dredging, but that was ignored. Unfortunately, no survey was carried out. July 2nd, 2018, Mayor Weiss in the meeting minutes states, and I quote, as was done in 2002 and in line with the state statutes, we will assess the canal owners of property a fee that will be based on linear footage. November 2nd, 2020, Councilman John Corbett proposed changing the prior approved basis of linear feet to a statutorily unsupported method of a parcel. Jan Harris advised the other council members that changing the already approved basis from linear footage to a parcel was not supported by the statute and that the town was opening itself up to a lawsuit. She recused herself from vote. Seems to be apparent or actual conflicts of interest by voting council members. Voting in favor of this change, some council members and their neighbors with large lots would see their cost reduced by thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, shifting the financial burden to families with smaller canal lots. The town and large canal lot owners would be unjustly enriched by this unlawful change, as their cost would be reduced by tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars and the burden shifted to small canal lot families. The statute and North Carolina law require that specially assessed costs be allocated proportionately to the benefits received. The change of the basis from linear footage to parcel ignored the statutory language and intent. It unfairly burdened smaller canal homeowners and unjustly enriched large homeowners' business in the town. We respectfully request that the town council postpone the vote on special assessment until a lawful solution based on linear footage and consistent with the town's representations in the state grant is adopted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Anthony Corvino. I live at 1216 Riverside Drive. The current special assessment on just 320 canal families is both unlawful and unfair. Furthermore, it fails to reflect the town's representation made to secure the state grant. The town was originally granted a maintenance dredging, which might have helped the canal owners, but unfortunately would have done nothing for bay owners. At that point in time, some town council members who had homes situated on the bay would not have received any benefit. The only way they might get a benefit would be under a navigational dredging. So the town chose to let that permit expire for the maintenance dredging and filed for a navigational dredging project. Why was the maintenance permit allowed to expire? Why did those members of the town council who lived on the bay and would receive benefit from a navigational dredging vote? They should have recused themselves due to a clear conflict of interest. Why was it changed from a linear footage assessment to a parcel assessment? Did that also benefit any council members? All of these questions need to be answered. Moving forward, we now find ourselves in the current situation. We were promised a dredging project that would improve navigability and the overall health of our waterways. Many residents and businesses supported this initiative with the understanding that it would be a beneficial investment for our community. However, the results speak for themselves. The project has failed to achieve its intended goals. The channels remain as unusable as before. The dredging project is a failure, and asking 320 canal homeowners to pay for the town's mistake is ridiculous. Prior to the dredging project, most residents would have approximately 5 hours around high tide. Now they have approximately 3.5 hours of tide time. Rather than assessing people by the parcel, it must be by the linear foot, with the town being no exception. If the town has 2,000 feet of frontage, that amount of money should come out of the town budget and not be passed along to canal owners who are receiving the same benefit as any other resident of the town of Sunset Beach for the town's dredged linear footage. Despite these clear shortcomings, we are now being asked to foot the bill for a project that has not delivered on its promises. This is a significant breach of trust and financial burden that many of us did not anticipate, especially given the lack of any tangible positive outcome. I believe it is crucial for the council to provide a clear and transparent explanation regarding the specific reasons for the project's failure, what steps the council intends to take to rectify the situation. Asking the residents to pay for a failed project without a clear explanation and a path forward is simply unacceptable. We invested our trust and anticipated a positive return in the form of improved waterways. Instead, we are left with the financial responsibility for a project that has not yielded the promised benefits. I urge the town council to reconsider the demand for payment until a thorough review of the project's failure is conducted and a clear explanation is provided to the community and a fair resolution is proposed. We are willing to be partners in improving our town, but the partnership requires transparency, accountability, and a commitment to delivering a promised outcome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tommy Griffin, 317 Stokes. I've got a lot of notes here, but I think a lot of this has already been said. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I'll go off script. The reoccurring issue here is benefit. And I mean, I've got a neighbor with jet skis that can't use jet skis. That requires very little draft. Somebody else was talking about a kayak. I mean, it's embarrassing how bad of a job they actually did. And it's my understanding that total cost was $7.6 million, 5.2 of that being grants. So that leaves 2.4 difference is what I came up with. And I understand that, you know, everybody wants to wash their hands, just pass it on. But there's not a person in this room that would hire me as a GC to come in, build you a deck. I'll leave it in worse condition than it was. You pay me in full, and then, hey, we hope we can hash this out later. I can say that with conviction because I'm a general contractor for the federal government. The Army Corps of Engineers being our main customer. Never, ever do you pay in full without a proper inspection and a happy customer. And I mean, in this case, we're the customer. None of us are benefiting from it. Part of the grant, my understanding was, 5 feet from a dock and 10 foot from marsh grass. Me and my neighbor over here, we're on the end, and it wouldn't even matter because the people that are further and closer to the intercoastal, it's the same thing. It's mud. I would say it's worse than it was. So it just doesn't make sense to. And there's a lot of people in here asking for postponement on a decision. I'm not asking for that. I'm asking you do the right thing. That's not how you do business. That's where I stand. And the guy talking about taxes earlier, that was kind of horrifying. It sounds like y'all have enough in the budget to do the right thing. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Michael Letterman. I live at 1410 Riverside Drive. As others have stated, let me reiterate that the current special assessment on just 320 canal families is both unlawful and unfair. Furthermore, it reflects the town's representations made to secure. It fails to reflect the town's representations to secure the state grant in the first place. Let me just start with a few descriptions applicable to this entire process and resultant debacle, as I think the town's constituents would agree upon. Impropriety, malfeasance, misdirection, and last but not least, irony. And I want to speak to all of them. The council improperly acted in making this assessment decision based on parcel, in essence assessing each canal front family the same amount as the Majestic Oaks Park and the town park, which far exceed both the linear footage and square footage of those families. And I want to go off script a little bit from what I've prepared. Mr. Richardson, you referenced parcel and docks, as if the correlation between a parcel and one dock is something to associate with regard to the dredging. And I find that comical, because they did not dredge in front of one dock. They dredged the entire linear footage, right? So regardless if Majestic Oaks has one dock or if the town park over here has one dock, the dredging was for the entire frontage. That's just side note. You know, through the timelines that others have and will probably continue to mention, this council has committed malfeasance on behalf of its constituents by changing from the precedent of linear footage and past dredging and failing to properly establish a tax district for canal owners, which resulted in one formal council member, again, that's been referenced, recusing herself from the vote to change from linear feet to parcel due to fear of a potential lawsuit. And actually eventually leaving the council, as I understand it. The town's own attorney, not you, Mr. Richardson, but the representative attorney in Superior Court, misdirected, arguably, proper statute by referencing State Law 145 regarding assessments being done either through linear footage or parcel. As the council should know, this applies only after a special tax district has been applied, of which none has been to date, right? The last word I want to talk about is irony that that applies in several different areas. As many people, again, have already referenced, the dredging itself was an abject failure. I understand that this is more of a contractor issue. You guys aren't out there actually doing the digging, but I mean, that's highly ironic given the situation, right? And the other application of ironic is the fact that, and I want to emphasize this, the majority of people in this room recognize that there's a burden and a responsibility on the canal owners for dredging. We just want it handled properly through the proper establishment of a tax district, and I apologize, I'll try and wrap it up, much like our neighbors at Ocean Isle and Holden Beach, and others in North Carolina. Our contention and your decisions are not just about today, though. This is about the future for how we handle these things. And so we would again ask that you look at that in establishing a tax district. You took an oath to serve the residents of Sunset Beach, and while all your decisions aren't easy, and we understand that, this is a common sense, easy decision on behalf of your constituents. You have the opportunity to do what's right. I'm respectfully requesting that the council postpone the vote on the special assessment until a lawful solution that includes the proper establishment of a special tax district with determination based on linear footage or square footage and consistent with the town's representation in the state grant is adopted. And also, Mayor Phillips, I would request of you, and I know you have this ability, to please ask the council to respond during this meeting.
This is a rule that they set up way before I come, sir.
All right.
There's a lot of things, I agree, there's a lot of things could be answered as we go.
Per the town's website, it does state that you have that ability, and maybe we need to rewrite that and rework the website then, because it certainly does have that.
Speak a lot of time.
All right, thank you.
Who's up next?
Morning. My name is Charles Reed. I live at 808 Riverside Drive. I concur with my neighbors who've spoken in detail that the tax assessment basis as it now stands for the dredging project is unfair and inconsistent with the state grant application. I appreciate the town attorney's summary of why he feels the basis is legal, but I feel a lot of questions still remain on this issue, on the legality or lawfulness of this method. I do wish that a lot of my neighbors that had tried to get clarity from all of you up here were turned down before this meeting, because I don't think the legality will be resolved in this public hearing. First, the special tax assessment, lineal square footage is the most appropriate and fair basis for the reasons that many of my neighbors have stated. Additionally, the benefits, I think, extend to the right-of-ways of the roads that enter the canal where stormwater comes out and deposits silt. every time it rains. The benefits are not solely listed to people who have boats and docks on the canal, as Mr. Richardson stated in that. Second to that, in reading the application that the town made to the state to get grants for financial assistance in this dredging, if you read it, it's totally inconsistent with what we heard today, that the only people who benefit this are people with docks. As has been mentioned previously, suitable soils were used to renourish the beach. Stormwater discharge, as I just mentioned, comes into the canal. Not on our line. We have all stormwater stored on site, but people from other lots that do not live on the canal. So the worst case, we've also heard from a lot of people saying that have boats, that saying the dredging has not done anything to benefit. I think the answer to that is that the council approved that they only dredged 5 feet outside of any dock area, just in the center of the canals. So it should have been obvious that none of the dock or boat owners living on the canal were going to benefit directly from this. I support the proposals that some of my neighbors have made, and I'm asking this group to table the vote until the legality issues can be resolved to the satisfaction of everyone, and what the council should do is discuss, not what they can do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I am Dana Spate Reed. I reside with him at 808 Riverside Drive. We live in a beautiful coastal area, rich with abundant water amenities that require ongoing work to protect, manage, and sustain. The movement of sand and silt in the ocean, in the marshlands, and the waterways is a given. As a result, considering whether and when dredging of public waterways is necessary and how to pay for it will continue to be an issue. The town of Sunset Beach views our public waterways as a critical shared resource for our community, providing recreation, fishing, wildlife habitats, and gorgeous scenery. Maintaining and protecting our public waterways is essential to the entire town, as clearly articulated in the state grant, which helped afford the most recent dredging project. It is understandable that the council, in the interest of what's best for the town holistically, pursued dredging despite opposition from many property owners. Somewhere in the process, however, the town council agreed to modify the dredging from maintenance to navigational, and also agreed to limit dredging to outside property owners' docks, hoists, and grasslands. As a result, the recent dredging has benefited the public use waterways only. No direct benefit has resulted to property owners along the canals. To pay for the dredging, the town council initially pursued a special assessment on selected waterfront properties, citing North Carolina Statute 160A 238, which uses lineal footage as a measure to allocate proportional fees. Special assessments on properties are lawful when there is a direct, measurable benefit to that property. Then, during 2020, the town council, presumably with legal counsel, changed the assessment fee to parcel base versus lineal footage or area. A parcel is not a measure of is not a unit of measure stipulated in the North Carolina statute. Assessing 320 property owners for the dredging as proposed is both unlawful and unfair. I request, along with my neighbors, the council postpone assessing properties until a lawful and fair means to pay for the dredging, one that reflects and is in accordance with the grant given to the town, can be articulated. In addition, I request the town council explore and implement a proper means to budget for and pay for future dredging or other maintenance expenses of our common shared public waterways. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Gruber. I live at 420 Sailfish Street. I did send each of the council members a email last Friday with some pictures attached. But when you really listen to everybody and what they had to say about the dredging project, it just seems to me, for the most part, anybody that had any properties on the waterways were willing to pay a reasonable amount for that dredging. And I live on one of the canals, and I sent pictures, but I think everybody that took pictures off of their back decks would agree there's really no change in those canals. All the docks are sitting in the muck. The boats are either sitting in the muck or in maybe a few inches of water. So the canals got no benefit from the dredging, except in the center. And a lot of the boats can't get to the center. And I think a lot of the problem with the quality of the work was it was switched from a maintenance dredge to a navigational dredge. And if you read, and this is coming off of your website, funds were applied for from the shallow draft navigation, channel dredging, and aquatic weed fund. And when you read about that, it specifically states that the property owners with docks, piers cannot benefit from those funds being used. And it's right there on the website. So what ended up happening when you did a navigational dredge, you just did the center channels, and people with boats really didn't get a whole lot of benefit from it because they can't even get to the water. The second point that I want to make is if you look at each of the canals and pretty much throughout the island, a lot of the stormwater, and this has been mentioned numerous times, the silt, all that washes into the canals. We had a big rain here within the past week. Look at the color of the water in the canals. It's all that runoff coming in. And my contention is, number one, that is part of stormwater management. That is the responsibility of the town. And it's just like if you live in a subdivision inland, there's stormwater funds used to fix drainage issues there. Well, it's no different on the island. And I think that it is the town's responsibility to do periodic maintenance. And maybe they don't pay the whole bill, but they should pay a good portion of the bill. Because if those drains were all closed up where you couldn't drain the water off the streets, the whole town's going to have a mess. So I'm going to ask, this needs to be done on a periodic basis because if you don't clean all the muck out of the canals, you're not going to have anywhere to send your storm water. So that's pretty much it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good morning. I'm Joe Cantoni, and I live on 708 Riverside Drive. And Grady, thank you for clarifying the statute. That's the same statute Attorney Blanchard represented in court that the town was relying on, Senate Bill 145. I think it's important to read the relevant sections of the statute. This act only applies to the towns Ocean Isle Beach, Southern Shore, Sunset Beach.
Could you pull the mic up?
Yes, sir. It certainly does apply to Sunset Beach, and it does allow for, as Grady stated, it does allow for assessment by linear footage or by parcel. What it doesn't allow is to charge when a tax district has not been established. Fees supported by canal dredging and maintenance. A municipal resolution may create a fee-supported canal dredging and maintenance district for all properties that are contiguous to the canal. That has, as we've heard from Lisa, as we've heard from the Attorney Blanchard in a Superior Court, that district to date has not been established. Once that its district is established, a municipality like Ocean Isle Beach and Holden Beach may impose annual fees for dredging and maintenance of canals. The governing board shall establish the fees on or before July 1st each year. So, the fees have not been established. If you've heard what Ocean Isle Beach and Holden Beach do, they're $1.75 to $3.75 a linear foot of canal frontage. There is no tax district. Because there's no tax district set up, you cannot specially assess us, and you certainly cannot especially assess us for a project that has been completed. That would be against public policy and North Carolina state law. It does not allow you to set up a district and retroactively charge people taxes or a special assessment for work that has already been done. Additionally, I was prepared to talk about 238 because that's what Lisa sent me as what you were using. And that was the statute that has linear footage that John Corbett recommended changing to parcel. Unfortunately for the town, they cannot now claim 238 applies. That would be professional misconduct and again against the laws of North Carolina. An attorney cannot represent in court a statute they rely on only later to change that statute for their convenience or benefit. I think right now we're willing to work with the town to find a fair way to charge the canal peoples. We believe it needs to incorporate what you represented in the state grant, and we'll work with you. But as of this moment, you don't have a way using the statute that Grady said to charge us a single penny. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you for your time. My name is Michael Moore. I reside at 1218 Riverside Drive. Council members, I'm not sure if you're aware of the enormous injustice being committed against the canal families by the current assessment method of a parcel. The cause of the problem is that the town is not paying its fair share per the statute under the parcel method. Did you know that dredging 1,500 feet along its parks, the town pays just $15,600? Did you know that the canal families are paying $234,000 for the same 1,500 foot of dredging? The 320 canal families represent less than 10% of the town's residents, yet are paying 95% of the total cost to dredge the town's parks. Moreover, there is absolutely no benefit to these families. There are no canal houses on the park land canal frontages. Additionally, all 12 of the town streets ending in the canal representing approximately 1,200 feet of the dredging are not being charged a penny. All these costs are unjustly borne by the just 320 canal families. Furthermore, the canal families are also paying part of $15,600 as part of the general funds of the town parks. They are essentially paying twice, once through the special assessment and again through normal taxation. Again, this is blatantly unfair and unlawful. The parks are owned by everyone and enjoyed by the entire Sunset Beach community. Yet the canal homeowners are paying an unjust and unfair share. This unjust and unfairness will go away if the town uses a lawful method of linear feet, as was done for prior Sunset Beach dredging projects. Only the canal families would be specially assessed, and the town will pay its fair share for service rendered. It is what is called doing the right thing. You have an opportunity to correct the injustice and do what's right by supporting a simple change to linear feet and assessment. So basically, another thing I'd like to say too, as yet these people have said as well, our docks now are sitting on the mud, on the canals, and now by doing the dredging, it's worse now than it was before. Me as a builder, developer, around, all across North Carolina, South Carolina, I've done hotels, I've done resorts, I've done it all, but I've always been held accountable. And I have to do bonds. I have to put bonds in to do these jobs, large bonds. So I had to put hundreds of millions of dollars for this. But what I do on my building side, I don't have a building inspector come out and do it. I have an engineer inspector. The reason I do that, because that way my people have accountability and they're covered with insurance in case something happens 10, 20 years. That's why I have engineers do the inspection versus from the actual building department. You can still do it, but I double do it with the engineer, and it just covers me. It covers the homeowner in case something happens, house falls apart 10 years down the road. Insurance picks it up and carries it on. Anyway, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm not supposed to be. Well,
Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Reed Watson, 1522 Riverside Drive. So, echoing what the previous gentleman said, I've learned from others that before the dredging, the boat could get out into ICW about 3 hours on either side of high tide. Now, boating opportunity is limited to about 1.5 to 2 hours. And this is about 50% less boating time. And we expect it to gain something, not lose it. To simplify, let's consider the analogy for those who don't live on the canals. And suppose the city plans to improve a street in front of your house. Maybe make it a little wider, a little smoother, but it's an improvement. However, when you go to leave your driveway, you can only do it 3 to 4 hours out of the day. You're kind of stuck there. So you have a tight window of time to get out and back to do what you need to do. So you have to plan your trips accordingly. That said, would you knowingly give the approval for funds to be used for improve that road in your house that you can't use? So we don't think anybody in this room would do that. It just doesn't make any sense. So meanwhile, all the other cars and drivers can use the improved road at no cost and free of charge. Okay. Now suppose that same street needed a storm drain ditches to clean out because of runoff from other communities nearby. And the city once again charges only you for that cost. Although your near community's stormwater drainage system where we live on the canals contain 100% of the runoff, as Charlie suggested, as required by North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. We contain all our runoff. None of it goes to the marsh, none of it goes to the canal. Okay? Well, all older parcels, their flow goes to the ditches. Their ditches go to the ditches of the new street that my analogy is talking about. And the city charges only you for their debris in your ditch when they come to clean it out. Again, it doesn't make any sense. Okay? So you can go and look today and can easily see that all the east end streets that have drains that flow into the canals. You go down Canal Street, you see all these drains flowing right into the end of each finger canal. Okay? And there's no less than 12 locations that continually discharge contaminated silt into the canals. It's an ongoing basis. And we have photos of silt sitting there. Now, this type of drain system, stormwater drain that another gentleman mentioned earlier, can't be used today. I think around the year 2000, they said no more stormwater runoff. So our community and North Shore East community has self-containment systems. There's no stormwater discharge into the canals from either of us on that. I can say without any doubt that I have received no benefit from the Sunset Beach dredging, zero benefit. In fact, the exact opposite has resulted and has decreased boating availability. See, my time's up, but in summary, canal owners should not be assessed for town cleanup of contaminated silt from street runoff and should not be assessed for improper dredging. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, sometimes you can have another 3 minutes. I'll take one.
They won't. Okay. I'm sorry. In the regular meetings, you have a first part and then you have a second part. That's it. Go ahead.
All right. Good morning. My name is Joseph Marco Longo. I'm at 403 17th Street. I also have a lot on North Shore, 1405 North Shore, with a 50-foot riparian waterway. So I wanted to ask the council to consider that all of the management of this project, a clearly failed project, a clearly over-cost project, one that cost more than 2x of our neighbors, one that left people in worse conditions than when they started, with no apparent benefit to the people you're assessing now. The failure lies with people on that side of this dais right here, not on this side. Yet you're asking us to pay for the failures over maybe multiple councils, But it's all on your side. You guys failed to run this project well. You failed to give oversight to the project. You spent too much on the project. You didn't create a tax group to tax for the project. And now that the project's over, I contend that none of these people should bear the responsibility of the failed project. The town of Sunset Beach that voted for you guys should bear the entirety of that equally. If Grady, if you're going to cite law, take a look at equal protection under the law. We're not getting equal protection and justice as the 14th Amendment is supposed to give us. Not at all. We're being unfairly asked to pay for your failures. No offense, but they were your failures. We didn't have any oversight. We had no ability to do anything in this project. We're just left with boats that can't get to the center of the canal. We have docks surrounded by mud. Why should any of these people this burden should be shared by the whole town's failures. But these are your failures. They're not our failures. We shouldn't be made to pay for the general failure of the town's management. And that's all I got to say. But not that the town's always failing. I appreciate some of the things you guys have done for us, and we all appreciate you, but this was a failure. That's all.
Thank you. Who's next? Anyone else? Chief, is anybody in the back? Okay.
Carol Kissel, 1407 North Shore Drive. My neighbor just spoke, and I agree with everything he said. I apologize for my appearance. I just worked out, and I've been standing out there for an hour and a half. So I'm going to be brief. I agree with what people said, that the current assessment on the 320 families is unlawful and unfair. And furthermore, it reflects the town's representations made to secure the grant. It fails to reflect that, actually, which in my experience as an executive working in the public sector for my whole career can lead to numerous consequences from the state, all of which are bad, including audits, repayments, legal action, and damage to our town's reputation. So for all of the other families and residents of our town, some of who don't care because they are not the 320 families, and they reside on the mainland potentially, or they don't go to the beach, or they don't go to the canal, or they don't own a boat, or they don't live on the water. Some who say, let them pay, it's not my issue. And some who don't even attend those things. I say this: beware of how the actions of our representatives here at the council. Beware of how they are rationalizing this decision. Beware of the unethical nature by which they are forging ahead. Beware that throughout the process, they are setting the table for a loss of public trust. Because these actions today will impact you going forward. If this is how they choose to govern, they are setting a precedent that will most certainly affect you one day on an issue that you care deeply about. So I urge the council to hear what everyone is saying here and understand the gravity and the implications of the decision that you may make today. And I remind you that it doesn't matter that many of you are leaving the council this year. You are carrying the reputation of our future public trust and governance on your backs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next.
Dominic DeRosa, 1503 North Shore Drive, and that's my cousin Carol Kissel. You should listen to her. She knows what she's talking about. As all of these engaged citizens, what amazing community we have, you guys. Okay, look, these guys have come before you and they want to engage. Let's engage. Let's solve this not in the public forum. Let's not tarnish our reputation further. Let's come together as citizens and neighbors and friends and work through this issue, because it's a long-term issue. It's not just about the money. It's not just the fact that we're mad because we have to pay. That's not it. It's we want to solve it together as a community. This is a great community. Let's not spoil it. Let's come together, postpone the vote, engage. Let's solve it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor, I hope you'll sort of give me more than 3 minutes because you're going to basically, I'm an engineer, consulting engineer that's been involved in dredging since 1979.
You state your name. and
Gary
address.
Green, 1615 Canal Drive. I do want to pass these out if it's okay with you, sir.
Yeah, go ahead. Thanks, sir.
It's okay.
How you doing, Jim?
I'm going to look at this from an engineering perspective. And what I want to start out with was what was originally proposed versus what we got. What you'll see in your packet there starts out basically with what was proposed when we were back at the fire station, whenever that was. And we're told at that time, basically, we're looking at a budget of about $5.5 million for the dredging. Also, at that time, if you'll go to page 2, that second page, you'll see there the canals. Each canal, and this is what we thought we were going to be getting. Each canal was proposed to be dredged 20 feet wide by 4 feet deep. That's what was on that drawing at the time. And so that goes with that, and I'll go what happened a little bit later with that. Also, if you look at the third page, you'll see what was originally proposed for the Bay Area. The Bay Area just had one canal going all the way down the center. With that layout, you have the closest anybody was over 30 feet from the edge of the channel from any dock. Now, you guys are complaining about 5 and 7. We've got 30 feet of mud between us and the dock. And so at the meeting, I basically had requested that you move everything closer to the dock and that you do that. And there was an attempt made to do that. But the only problem is if you go to the third page, you'll see that it only got done for eastern half. And if you'll still look at that, I'm sorry, on that previous one, those red contours, those red lines you see, there's a 20-foot offset. So if you go 20, 40, 60, 80, that tells you how far away each dock was. Even in the revised layout, we still don't have a dock that's 30 feet or less to the edge of the channel. I don't know why somebody laid that out. I don't know who approved it. But the problem with it is we were told at the meeting that we would have a realignment that would allow the edge of the channel, to be moved closer to the dock. Unfortunately, we never got any update. I did because I know some of the engineers, but none of the people here got any updates of what was going to be modified or what was going to be changed. So no one knew. So the result of that, and then what I'll do is, so the result of that, we never got any updates of saying that anything was going to be modified. So if you go to the next page, you'll see the canals once again. And what you'll note there, this was a document that was put out by the engineer showing what the revised canal widths would be. There are places in there that basically are only 6 feet wide. I don't know why, but why was nobody updated, noting that they weren't going to get a 20-foot wide canal 4 foot deep? That's on somebody. I don't know. And I will start over with this. Lisa, I assume you've never done a dredging project before, and I imagine most of the people on the staff have never done a dredging project before. I'm not relying on you to run this project. I'm relying on your consultant, the engineer. That's where this fault lies. So with that made, no, basically what happened was we didn't get what we were promised. And if you look in the bay, once again, now you'll see again another picture there, and which everybody's been showing there, but basically you can see that we were basically nowhere near. If you look at the picture of seeing what the bay looks like, we have no way to access. We can't access, basically we're the same operating as far as getting away from the dock as we were before the project. So with that in mind, I want to go to the end, and you'll see the last page there. Basically, where it brings to now, we're now at $7.5 million. But were we ever updated that the cost was going to go to that? Did we ever get any updates until the end? No. And I will challenge a couple things. I know Dustin talked about, there's 2 things I want to finish up with. 2 things Dustin talked about. I think one, he talked about how the end profile satisfied it. But what happens in that, you have to understand what's going to happen. Maybe you had the width but the slope on the side was near vertical. What happens to that over time is that near vertical with prop wash is going to do this. And so it's going to fill in. Now you don't have your width again. The second thing that's false. I don't know where you guys heard the 5 foot offset where you can't dredge 5 feet. There's two different scenarios. One is if you're a natural waterway, yes, you have restrictions, but this is a man-made waterway, a canal. It was all previously dredged. So technically you can dredge all the way up to the bulkhead if you want to. And so that's what I have with that. I think so. In summary, what I want to say, we were told back at the fire station one thing. We haven't received that yet. We have not got what you said you were going to do.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay. Anyone? Nobody else back there, sir? Okay. Okay. Is anyone else in here? Everybody's had an opportunity to speak. Mike, you stay for 1 second, please. Sure. You sit right there. We'll stand right there. All right. If there's no further, then do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
How about a recess?
Yeah. We'll take just a 2-minute recess to let these guys, and then we'll be right back, please. I'd like to welcome everybody back to the meeting. We'll be going to the old business. Resolution to close the dredging fund. Tara Nichols, you have the floor.
Sorry. Okay. So in front of you, you have the resolution to close the fund. The money that remains in the fund is money that was transferred from general fund to match what the town match would have been for if we had spent the entire project cost. There was also some interest gained on that. So with this being designated as a capital project, my recommendation was to continue to use these funds as town matching funds for other capital projects that we have. So this money is still considered general fund. It's in Fund 44, which is the dredging fund currently. So with this being closed, we have a $725,125 town match for Majestic Oak. These are for two different grants that require town match to go into, I think it's phase 1 for this. And then the remaining amount, we have a fire truck that's already on ordered, and that was what we have been putting money into the capital reserve fund for. We do not have all that money set aside yet. So one option is to use this money, continue to keep it at capital, and move that money there to put towards the purchase of the fire truck, which will be completed, I believe, in the beginning of fiscal year 26-27. So then the next fiscal year, we will have to pay out the entire amount for that fire truck. Are there any questions related to closing this fund? You have a diagram. I kind of wanted to show where the project was, the actual cost, what money was transferred, and then how that, yeah, that's it right there. It's just kind of a visual of what that looks like.
What
is the price off there?
The cost out of the dredging fund?
No, of the fire truck.
Yes. It is not on the tip of my tongue. 1.1 million, I believe.
Okay. And how much do we have in that capital fund?
Currently, we have 300,000.
And we're going to add, your proposals to add this 256 to it.
Correct. And we have budgeted another 150,000 in the next fiscal year.
Yeah.
So we still wouldn't be quite there for the entire cost, but we can finance portion of it if we have to, or we'll look at it at 26-27 budget as well.
What is the pleasure of this council? Or do you have any more questions for Ms. Tara?
What would happen if we just put it back into the general fund?
You can transfer it back into the general fund. We still have the need for the town match for these two projects, so they would most likely be designated for those projects in the future as we move forward. We have some expenses that need to be paid out of the Majestic Oak project at this point already. And then the fire truck, you would either designate in fiscal year 26-27 the remaining cost of that out of general fund, which is where this money would be, or you would finance it. At that point, then you have interest added onto it as well. This reduces the amount of interest you would pay through financing a fire truck as well. So essentially, you still have to, these things that we're going to use the money for, we are obligated to use those funds already.
So the net effect on the general fund would be the same
either way,
one way or the other. So
yes.
It just saves bureaucratic time to go ahead and allocate it for the Majestic Oak matching and for the fire truck.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
I would move to approve the resolution closing the dredging fund and appropriate the remaining funds as noted in the resolution.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next up, we'll be moving to new business. 2024-25 budget amendment, Tara Nichols.
So, in talking about fire trucks, we have had some unexpected repairs right here up at the end of the fiscal year, with the potential of one of them needing nearly $15,000 in repairs. So the total amount, I gave you an updated budget amendment. This cost, this like extra cost, so to say, just came in after this packet went out. So it's increased to $27,000 total for this fire truck. It's actually 3 fire trucks that needed work put on them. And then we also had the police department had some additional tire needs throughout the year, and then the other part is for public infrastructure.
Y'all have any questions? Go ahead.
And Tara, this money comes out of the fund balance, right?
This is a fund balance. This is an appropriation of fund balance.
Okay.
I will note that if this fire truck repair, because we don't have the exact amount, if this fire truck repair is not done and completed in this fiscal year, this money will go right back into the general fund balance. And then we will have to reappropriate it after July 1. So I may come back to you with the same thing, but that money will be back in the fund balance at that point. It would not be essentially spending it twice. It's just, we don't know for sure if it's going to be something that's completed prior to June 30th.
So you got 2 weeks to finish the job, otherwise it's going to
Correct.
That's right. That's it. Thank you for explaining that.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we approve the budget amendment.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next up. Contract services with Anchor Point Planning LLC. Miss Ang, you have this one?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a contract for planning services from Anchor Point Planning. Wes McLeod has been a consultant and a planner with the town for over 15 years, working with the Cape Fear Council of Governments. He has gone out on his own now, and our current planner, Ron Satterfield, has chosen to join him. And this is a contract to secure their services for the 25-26 fiscal year.
Question. Why don't we continue? Why do we not continue to use the Council of Government where both Ron and Wes originally were from?
We have had success with both of these gentlemen over the years, and they are experienced with the town. Wes McLeod was a party of writing the UDO, and we just chose, or I am recommending that we continue with their services instead of with the Cape Fear Council of Government.
Are the costs going to be similar to what we paid
Yes.
to the Council of Governments?
Yes. Their cost is $9,200 a month, which is relative like $110,400, if I do the math in my head right.
Yes.
Yep.
What was the council of government?
I don't have those figures in my head.
You had budgeted $120,000 for the Council of Government in our budget.
And that included for the planning services and the land use plan
Yes.
update.
Yes. And this includes the
And
land
this
use plan.
includes the land use plan update. Hmm.
Oh, okay. So, go ahead. Report. So I just want to make sure everybody knows we were paying the council of government for Wes's time.
Correct. And Ron's. Hmm.
Now, the planner we had originally, director of planner, we're in the same range for salary, correct?
Hmm.
Okay. Has our attorney reviewed this contract?
No, he hasn't, but it's the standard contract that we've used every year that he has reviewed in past years.
Okay. Just thought I.
I have not reviewed the contract. I was aware that Mr. McLeod and Mr. Satterfield were departing from the COG. I trust what Lisa is saying about the comparable cost. It seems like it's efficient and advisable to continue with two guys, especially Wes, who's been providing services to the town for years, is very familiar with the town. And but I'm happy to do whatever is the pleasure of council. I can review it. You can make it. You could approve it subject to attorney review and any substantive changes. I don't know. Up to you.
I think there's no question that the town has been satisfied with Wes and Ron recently. The people have been, I've been anyway, very satisfied with Ron, getting to Ron, talking to Ron, understanding the planning situation here. I think both of these gentlemen have, as Grady said, have the history with us and have done a very good job. So this move, I think, is a positive move.
I'm just looking at it right now because the one thing that I would want to look at is the term of the agreement, so that if you get into it or I see something I don't really care for, assuming Wes and Ron didn't agree to my changes, which I can't imagine being the case, then you got a termination for convenience clause here upon 1 month's written notice. So I mean, it's not something that binds the town for a year per se, and it's termination for convenience with or without cause. So based upon that, I can look at it and see if there's something glaring that offends me as your lawyer, as the town's lawyer. But that also, if I found something like that, obviously I would go to Mr. McLeod and Mr. Satterfield and request a revised agreement. I believe they would probably do it, but in the event that they didn't, you could terminate upon 30 days notice or 1 month's written notice.
So you're recommending that we vote positive upon your recommendation or upon your review?
I would, if you want to go ahead and clear this item off your agenda, I would say to go ahead and approve the contract as presented. Lisa's reviewed it. She made some changes to it concerning some provisions that they agreed upon. I've been working with Lisa for a while now. I suspect that if she felt like there was something troublesome in there that she wanted me to review, or Susan, then we would have done it. She would have asked.
Okay.
So
okay.
I'm confident that the agreement is probably well done.
All right. They've both done a good job with our planning department. Wes has given us good advice many times. So I have a motion. I move that the council approve the professional services agreement with Anchor Point Planning, LLC, and authorize the town administrator to execute the agreement, and that the agreement be reviewed by Grady, and then we can cancel it if we find things don't work.
Do I have a second?
So your motion is to approve it subject to attorney review.
Yes.
Okay.
I second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next up will be the shallow draft navigational project assessment roll confirmation and levy. Ms. Angler.
Okay, the public hearing has been held. You all have heard everything from the public. And it's at the pleasure of council now.
Is it possible to ask Grady a question here? During the hearing, one of the people who talked said that we have to set up a dredging district before we can ever charge people an assessment. Is that correct? Have we done something wrong, etc.?
It is my position as town attorney that that is not correct, that you have followed the law as we sit here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Is one other question now. We talk about navigational dredging versus mechanical dredging.
Maintenance.
Maintenance, I'm sorry. Maintenance. Sorry. Navigation, maintenance. True. A lot of people who've talked today has talked about we should have done the maintenance dredging. And it wasn't right to do navigational. But more than that, they said that we really didn't have a choice. What I understood as I researched all this, we had an absolute choice. The council before us had an absolute choice to choose one or the other. Is that correct? Without somebody stepping in and saying you chose the wrong thing, we can choose one or the other.
Is that a question to me?
Yes, yes, sir.
So this dredging's been going on for over a decade. This whole
yes,
so,
13 years.
So I can't possibly answer why the town went down the path of navigational versus maintenance, or why it started out as maintenance and went to navigational. My suspicion is that it was dictated by circumstances and authorities outside of the town's control, such as Coastal Resources Commission, Division of Coastal Management, CAMA Rules and Regulations, Army Corps of Engineers, you name it. All these, when you do a scoping meeting, you got what, a dozen or so state and federal departments and agencies, marine fish, all of this, shellfish, that it was either you have to do it this way or it's not going to get approved. You have to do it this way or the state's not going to approve it. You have to do it this way or the state's not going to even entertain a grant. So my guess is that that's what happened. And the navigational channel, I'm going to kind of go a little beyond your question here because
it's okay.
I do have a background. I've lived in Wilmington and Riceville Beach my entire life. I boat, and I have friends who boat. I have friends that have docks along Banks Channel in Riceville Beach, on the Intercoastal Waterway in Riceville Beach. This dredging project established a navigational channel. Clearly, there's been pictures offered. I've seen Mr. Green's pictures. There's been others. Their names I can't remember, showing that at low tide there's mud where their dock is. I don't know if any of these folks have sought to apply for their own individual CAMA permits to dredge out the area around their docks. Like Mr. Green was saying, he says, based upon his experience, that it's a man-made canal and that you could, quote, dredge right up to the bulkhead. Well, that wasn't allowed by this dredging project for reasons I just covered, but that doesn't mean that the individual owners whose docks are sitting on mud can't go and dredge out the area for their dock. I have friends that do that frequently in Riceville Beach along those water bodies, because when it gets to low tide, you can't, it may be some water there, but it's not enough for even a john boat. And so they do this dredging on an individual basis and get their permit to dredge it out. There are dredging companies galore all over New Hanover County that handle that sort of thing. And so it may be that that's something that these folks who are dissatisfied with the dredging of the navigational channel, because I've heard it and I hear them. Well, we can see the water, but we can't get to the water because the channel's been dredged, but it didn't come all the way up to the dock. And again, specifically, the town was limited on what it could do to 5 feet and 10 feet from the grass. So those confines were set by agencies with authority over that channel, or those channels, those water bodies. But I do believe, I have to believe, that each individual property owner can go to CAMA and seek out dredging around their dock so that they can truly access the navigable channel. And somebody says, well, what's the point of having a navigational channel dredging if I can't even get to it? Well, if you don't have any navigational channel that's dredged out and can actually be used, then it doesn't matter if you get to it or not. So I hear them. I've seen the pictures. I don't doubt them. I don't doubt the pictures. I don't believe that's the end of the story. I think the town did what it could. The town can maintain the navigable channel now. That's part of the reason for this entire statutory framework. And I'll shut up with that.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
While you were talking about people dredging around their dock, I've been on the waterways through all the creeks a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And one of the things that was pointed out is that if anybody tries to dredge around their dock without going through CAMA or the proper authorities, and they disturb the grasses or whatever, they can be fined big bucks.
Big time.
So they have to file for their permits if they're going to do it. And I'm not saying they should or whatever. I'm just warning everybody, before you do anything, go for your permits, because they tell you exactly how far you can go and where you can go.
That is correct. Absolutely, 100%. If folks are listening to me, I would encourage you to go with a reputable dredging company to come out and look at your property and ascertain what can and cannot be done from your respective dock to and from the navigable channel through CAMA and DCM approval. It may be that the answer is nothing, but I don't believe that's the case.
No. They won't allow it. Go ahead, Charlie.
A lot of you are new here. I'm going to go back over a little history. We bought our house on the island 32 years ago. At that time, the big question was, how tall should the bridge be? Well, there was a group of people here that wanted no development. They controlled the council for a while. They were against the bridge. They were against dredging. They were against sewer on the island. Anything to stop development. When they controlled the council, they set unreasonable setbacks in commercial areas, making it almost impossible to build any kind of business there. What I envisioned was Sunset Boulevard full of shops, nice shops. But we've been able to change that. We've changed the idea of no development at all. So over this time, talk of dredging has been going on for 20 years. And Lisa mentioned when the grass grows in, CAMA says, keep your hands off. That's what a lot of this problem is.
I have directly been involved in numerous lawsuits where folks are on the Intracoastal Waterway. And because a certain type of grass covers their property line, they cannot just back a boat down and create a boat launch. They have to go through extraordinary means to build a certain type of bridge that allows for a certain amount of sunlight, a certain amount of movement of water, so that the shellfish and the grass don't die. And if they don't do that, and they found out about it, you're looking at steep fines. And it can be expensive. Again, until something changes with the regulatory bodies of CRC, DCM, etc., everyone is tied of what they can and cannot do.
They won't let you, sir. I mean, their dialogue doesn't answer.
We can't.
Their rules is stated like that.
Mr. Mayor, they're your rules too, whether you voted them in or not.
So,
Look, they got it fixed where you can't, but let me say something since you said that. All right. We've had a lot of citizens come out, the affected citizens today. They've asked a lot of questions. They've not been able to get any answer on anything whatsoever. We all entertain answering any of the questions that they asked today. We all entertain taking consideration of tabling this further to look into it, to see if you can work with it. They've asked that.
Yes.
Would you table, or I don't know whether you table or not, but would you look at it, even the deal about going from parcel to linear? Is that something you think? That's the main questions that I've heard asked today, is would you at least entertain that, and let's try to work together for a positive outcome. That's all I can ask y'all. Will y'all do that? Because it's for y'all. Y'all have the whole constitution. I don't.
well, we haven't finished our discussion
No,
yet.
we're not done yet.
Okay,
That's all I
so-
know. But
so
he called
you
me
got-
out on that, so I wanted to put it out there on the floor, and let's go from there.
So, would you, Mr. Mayor, the audience is supposed to be quiet. You've explained to them that they don't have the questions. Let us go through and ask questions
Go ahead,
and
sir.
do it as they
Go
can.
ahead.
Okay, there's been the allegation that there was a failed project, that there was no oversight, no evaluation. Lisa or Grady, could you go through and point out, you explained at that meeting where you briefed all of this stuff, that you explained what the inspection and approval process was, what agencies were involved, what engineering companies, and that. Could you do a quick summary and then to again show that it was not a haphazard project with no oversight?
I think Lisa should answer that part, and then I will probably add a few things to it.
Thank you.
The town council contracted with a company by the name of Moffett and Nickel that had at least 10 engineers over the life of the project that worked on this, with the design and the engineering and the scoping meetings for the permits. We met with, and I'm sure I'll forget some of them, but we met with the Army Corps, CAMA, Division of Environmental Quality, marine fisheries, wildlife,
Coastal
water
Resources
quality,
Commission.
water resources, and Division of Coastal Management is CAMA. Am I forgetting any of them? And through those, they told us what the design ended up being, how far we could go, how deep we could go, how wide we could go. We moved ungodly amounts of shellfish to be able to get into the mouth of turtles at all. And we were told where we could go 40 feet and where we could go 6 feet and where we could go 10 feet. And all of that is documented. There were presentations that were given to this council monthly that are on the website. There were scope of meeting minutes that were also on the website and are available of all of those meetings. What we ended up with was a compromised project that the state and federal agencies allowed the town to achieve.
Let me add to that. The state is not in the business of giving away $5+ million if they didn't feel like it was going to be of a benefit. Moffitt and Nickel is one of the most reputable coastal engineering firms for dredging. We actually had their principal, I think his name is Doug Huggett, and I go to Beaufort for a CRC meeting to request a variance because we weren't getting it approved without getting a variance by the CRC, which we got, and it wasn't easy to allow something pertaining, was it Jinx Creek?
The CAMA permit was issued to go to a -2 at mean low water because of the rule of connecting to deep water, which was -2 in Jinx Creek. So the variance was to allow us to go to -5.
And I guess my point on all this is, I'm just a lawyer. She's just a talent. You guys are just the council members. And so you hire experts. I don't know who else you would have hired that had more experience and qualifications than Moffitt Nickel. Does that mean they're perfect? No, I don't think anyone's perfect. And if council is bothered enough by what you've heard to charge me with looking into something that you think could have been done wrong, okay. I mean, at the end of the day, as I understand it, the project as scoped and as applied for and as limited by the rules and regulations of this state and federal government was done in accordance with that approval.
And this document was an important document. This is what the Town of Sunset Beach Dredging Project, some of you might have looked at it, some of you may not, I'm not sure. But reading that cover to cover and looking at all the pictures and all the surveys and all of that, as a non-engineer for sure, I really came away saying, I think we dotted all the T's, dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's. And the questions I had for Lisa, the questions I had for Dustin were answered. And as Mike said, Dustin took us right on the boat. And we went to every part of the dredging project, explained it to us, saw diagrams, surveys.
At low tide.
At low tide. It was all done at low tide, not at high tide, not at whatever, medium tide, whatever you call it. It was all done at low tide. And it was just very, very strong case for this town doing what they could do. Just talking to Lisa about, I call them the alphabet soup group that she had to deal with all the time. And the number of times you had to deal with them, the number of phone calls, the number of Zoom meetings, all of that was astronomical as far as I was concerned. I kept saying it didn't trust us at all on what we were trying to do. And with Dustin talking about they had to do surveys every week at one point to keep approval of what we were doing. In fact, they stopped us twice because they didn't think we were doing it right.
And I think it's important to note that we had weekly meetings with the contractor, the engineer, and all the scope of meeting agencies. Attended weekly meetings the entire duration of the project, start to finish. And a lot of times, some of them were on site.
So I didn't come on council until implementation was happening. It wasn't all the planning before, but the implementation was happening. And in reviewing that as much as I did, it was astounding to me what we had to go through and what we went through to make this happen. Okay, that's all I'm going to say.
There's another question,
Yes, sir.
Issue that has been raised by many of these folks, which is a valid question, is that we originally started looking at this as a maintenance dredging project, and then we switched over to a navigation project. And there's some different implications. Maintenance would have let us go up to and perhaps underneath the docks. Navigation put us out into the middle. What was was there a main reason why we went in one direction versus why we went towards navigation?
I can't answer that question. I was not involved in that decision. I mean, I wasn't. I wasn't even really involved with the dredging stuff until very recently. I mean, we're talking past plus or minus 2 or 3 years. Whenever the variance happens, when I started getting engaged.
Okay. Well, my understanding, I was back there, and I'll give it my understanding, and Lisa, please correct me. My understanding is the issue was navigation gave us an avenue to go get grants, which could pay a large part of this cost. Maintenance, that route did not have the availability of grants who would pay for it, particularly, I think, because of the individual benefits to each dock owner that went through there. That's my recollection is part of the thinking that went on back then. That was a place where we get the money. Otherwise, the dredging would cost us all the way through there. So one of the other issues associated with that was lack of certainty as to what had been previously dredged, and the Finger and Fish canals had been dredged in 2002, which would have made them eligible for maintenance dredging because the the dredging had been done. But the bay had not been dredged, or there was no way to confirm that other than when the process went through of digging out the bay and creating the land that happened 50 or so years ago. Is
prior to CAMA.
Prior to CAMA, yeah.
Yeah.
CAMA came into being with some of the as a result of some of the work that had been done here. So the point being, my understanding also is we would do the navigation, get it dredged out, and then be able to set up the dredging district, which we were given approval from the legislature and the general statutes, approximately 2013, 2014. That was a long time back when people were talking about it then. That would have, we had the permission to do the maintenance district, but first we had to get it dredged one time. Is that correct?
The rationale was to establish the navigational channel.
Yep.
So when you came back and did the maintenance dredging, there'd be somewhere to go. So the rationale of the council at that time was to establish the navigation channel.
Yep.
Set up the district, do the annual assessments just like Ocean Isle, Holden do, and in 3 to 5 years come back with the maintenance dredging.
Yeah. Other than having been able to, the intention was to be able to get this dredging going back in the 2002, 13 and 14 era, and it's taken 10 years to go ahead and do that. Now we're at the point, having closed out the dredging fund and having done the navigational dredging, that we could set up a maintenance district and start that process, recognizing that we need to go every 3 to 5 years.
Correct.
So that's pretty much correct there.
And then it will be up to council to decide what type of dredging to do in the future. But it looks like we're setting up, anyway, looking at the maintenance dredging in the future. Now that's just my opinion. There's nothing, no vote for that or anything. But okay.
And the law allows for both, for the town to do maintenance and navigational dredging and to levy assessments on those properties that are contiguous to the project. That's not Grady saying it. That's straight black and white from the statutes.
And you stated, whoop.
Come on, Mr.
Sir,
Mayor.
Come on, man.
Sir,
Let's go.
Sir,
Hey,
I understand, sir, but they won't let you go out like that. I mean, I don't want to put you out here. I don't want to do that. I just want us to. I understand it, but go ahead, Grady.
I'm not in the business of giving the town bad advice. I represent I represent the town of Sunset Beach, and it means a lot to me. Whether I can't possibly satisfy everyone with a different point of view. My job is just to give you what the law is, the way I believe the law says it is, that I can defend in court successfully. I'm also not in the business of losing litigation. My track record speaks for itself on this. So my job is just to give you the law, what I think the law is based on my reading of it. That's what I do. And I'm not advocating for one thing over the other. I don't advocate for linear footage or parcel. I don't. My job is to make sure that I give you the best advice possible for you guys to use what I'm giving you as advice to make your decisions that can be defended in court, if it should come to that.
thank you for that.
Okay.
Okay, so no, so I can go back. I'd like to go a little bit further and address linear versus by parcel. And you go back into the history around the 2020 meeting where the council made that decision. I came on the council in 2016, strongly supporting the need to do dredging. It was clear since 2002, and then in 2010, the finger canals were all filling up, and something needed to be done. 2010, the 51% did not approve doing the assessment. So when we get to how we were going to do the dredging and whether we were going to do the dredging, the council at that time, for the most, was split between whether to dredge or not. And there were a group in the community, the same group that Charlie mentioned, Mr. Nern mentioned, that opposed the bridge, that opposed the sewers. Both of those were very much key developments that enabled us to put the types of houses in the types of areas that we put them in now, big ones. I got one of the big ones I couldn't have built back then. So the point being, we got up there and the council was split. I was not the one who made the motion. I was corrected. I was not the one who brought up the condition to do linear foot, but a key council member to lead the vote one way or the other is the one who proposed it. You mentioned that a council member opposed linear foot and recused from making that vote. Without the mission,
Please, sir.
Opposed. I was corrected there. Opposed the parcel, and then recused. The council didn't approve the recusal. That means that was a positive vote for the decision. And any council member knows that we have to be out there and vote. We can't just say, I'm not going to vote for this. That becomes a positive vote for whatever the issue is. With my basic desire to keep the canals and the bay as viable waterways, I saw what the politics were at the time, and I made the proposal to go by parcel, and that vote carried. And we moved forward. There were other compromises that had to be made. The reality is that for the For the dredging to really work good, we also would need to do North Jinks Creek and possibly other areas to keep the flow of the waters. The compromise, again, with the council at that time was not to do North Jinks Creek as part of this dredging process. All of this is taking place over 10 to 12 years. And so that's where it came out that that was where the vote in 2020 was, to do this by parcel. And whether it makes any difference to you or not is a different issue, but that's how it happened. It wasn't just happenstance.
You'll have fair choice to make.
Okay. Anybody else got a question or any more comment? Not. Not. What's the pleasure of council in regards to this issue? Are you going to table it and make a motion to go through, or are we going to not do nothing?
I'll make a motion that we table this thing until we really sit down and listen to all the questions these people had and have some responses to them.
Do I have a second on that motion? All right, there's no second on that motion.
Okay.
What's the pleasure of council?
Lisa, Mike's proposal now. I can't, how would we do this? I don't know. How would we decide? Would we have Grady go look and to see if he can find anything wrong? Would that be the first step? Or what do we do moving forward? I just don't see it if we go along with Michael's motion.
Please,
quiet, please. Thank you.
So there's been a lot of talk about the linear footage versus the parcel footage. People have made, compelling arguments for linear footage, maybe not compelling enough for you all. To me, if council is willing to entertain a different assessment from per parcel back to linear footage, then that would cause a reset. You'd have to make that motion now, basically to not go through with the per parcel levy and assessment. You would go and you would express an intent to do a linear footage assessment, which means you would do back, because per parcel is going to be different than linear footage, right? People on the assessment roll, rather than a uniform assessment, it's going to vary depending on the linear footage of each person's lot. Otherwise, you can make a motion to go forward with what you have today. If you want, and you can do either one of those things while also looking at whether or not there's been any sort of negligence or any actionable negligence. There are certain statute of limitations that may prevent claims if there are any claims. I don't know. You're talking about something that spans 12 years at least.
At least 13.
Michael?
Yes, sir.
One thing and the reason we're talking about linear versus parcel, when the discussion was made, I understand, to go parcel. We didn't have Majestic Park. It wasn't part of the issue. So the little bit of, quote, town park area was a small area when you look at the relationship of all the lineal feet we dredged. But we added Majestic Park, which adds a whole bunch of others. And I think that at that point, we should take a look at both and say what we want to do.
Well, one of the things back then, the town park consisted of 2 parcels back then.
Yes.
And back then, what was Majestic Oak privately owned had approximately 11 parcels, 10 or 11 parcels on the waterway. That makes a difference.
All right, thank you.
And the current once the town took over Majestic Oak, it got changed from 11 parcels to 1 parcel, if I'm correct. Is that correct, Lisa?
That's correct.
Okay.
You continuing, Mike?
I'm thinking.
Can we
go ahead? Go ahead.
This would impact the town and everything else. Can we make a motion to approve this, subject to changing the Majestic Oak from 1 parcel to 11 parcels, then reallocating the number? That would cause a table and redoing of the math and change somewhat. If continuing to do it by parcel.
I think that's the issue. I think there's several issues that were brought out here that we have to look at besides just that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And I think that just doing it right now, it's going to get swept under the rug.
Well, what are the issues then?
What are you?
So we're talking about lineal feet versus parcel.
Yeah.
And you're saying, okay, we'll give 7 parcels to Majestic. Well,
11.
11. Okay, 11. 11 out of 318. How many of 300 being charged?
3/3.
So we've gone, you said how many years we've been on this? 10, 12, 14? What's
13?
How about 2 more months?
So, yeah. So let me also, Majestic Oaks is subject to a state grant matching fund for the town, and the concept that Mr. Corbett just mentioned about taking it from the 1 to 11, I'm not sure, we got to make sure that would not violate the conditions of that state grant for that park. If you're entertaining doing something like the 11 lots or going to linear footage, you got to go back to the start of this you got to make a motion to do it by linear footage and go back up the chain to where we come to this point today, where it's a linear footage decision to make, and you have a public hearing on that, because a lot of people in here are opposed to the per parcel. They want linear footage, and I know there's other issues, but I suspect that if you change it, you're going to have some people coming in that are opposed to linear footage, and they want per parcel, which is fine. That's the whole process, but I didn't want anybody to think that this would end it by just going back to linear footage, because there's going to be another opposing side of view of this. Plus, I got to make sure that Majestic Oaks, we don't compromise that grant.
Yep.
Bring up another subject, and that would be conflict of interest. I and another council member have been accused since the beginning of this to have a conflict of interest on how we did this. My interest has been purely to get the dredging done. The legal aspects of the conflict of interest were resolved, and there is determined no conflict of interest as me being one of the owners to be voting on dredging over the past almost 9 years that I've been serving on the council. I would point out, though, on a bi-parcel basis, I own a 50-foot lot. Okay, if we go linear foot, that means my cost for the 50-foot lot would go down, because there's some lots that are much bigger. Okay, with that, voting for going to linear foot would mean I'm getting a financial benefit. Now, the benefit that I was being charged is by dredging, our properties would go up 25%. Well, it just finished dredging, and I'm still not up to the value that my land and house were when I paid for it. The point being, I think I would have a case that there's a conflict of interest for me to vote for by linear foot, because I would get a clear financial advantage at this time. And so I'm just staying out of that bit. And
I respectfully disagree with that. I mean, I understand you're trying to err on the side of caution, but I don't consider that to be a direct financial conflict of interest. You're disclosing it right now, where a lot of people in here would advocate for the linear footage, and I think probably just about, I could be wrong, but I would think that just about everybody in here wouldn't care if you're going to have a lesser assessment if it goes per linear footage. Now, some of the people that are per parcel supporters might have a problem with it, but that's my point is, I don't I don't believe that that gives rise to a recusable, disqualifying conflict of interest. Otherwise, I mean, it's if you were an owner in Moffett and Nickel, okay, it's a sliding scale, right? And you have to, your job, paramount job on council for all of you, is to make decisions. You could literally find just about any reason not to vote on something from a direct or indirect benefit. So we have to look at the scale of where it becomes a real substantive conflict. And I don't think a few $1,000s, because it changes on the formula, it gives rise to a recusable conflict.
Another question that goes up to this, if we go down to bilinear foot, okay, regardless of what we do, how we handle Majestic Oak, the cost to the town would be significantly higher because of just the length that we have talked about earlier in this meeting. So would addressing that issue impact on the decision that we've already made on our budget? Or would that be rolled over to the next year if there's any, because there'll be additional costs to the town.
But I think we were just talking about being able to move money between capital and whatever. It can't be that much compared to what we're spending for a fire truck.
I think that's a Tara question. I think Ms. Nichols should be asked that question.
Okay.
If she can answer it, not put you on the spot.
Oh, she can answer any question. She
Can
can
you
answer
answer the
any
question?
question.
To be 100% honest, the impact on the budget, I don't know what the cost would be. I don't know what the difference is. I don't know. I haven't seen the analysis of how much that would be for the town versus what it is right now. The other piece of that is for, if you're talking about like the assessments in the budget, we didn't appropriate for the revenue of the entire assessment at this point. And anything that's tied to that, we just would not spend that money at this point. Is that what you're asking?
We would go back to
what I'm asking is if we delay to go ahead and go through further analysis, whether it goes by linear foot or whether it stays as by parcel, does that mess up our budget? Are we still in a position with our budget to move on into the next year and we just make amendments and adjustments as required?
Yeah, right now it would but we can move forward with the budget, and as you assess it, then I would assess the budget. Anything that's tied to the assessment is capital at this point, and so you just hold off.
We would go back to the department heads for them to prioritize the capital that they've requested in the approved budget.
Okay.
Until this matter was decided.
Okay, so that being those physical things, the vehicles, the equipment, that we have in the budget for capital acquisitions this year could be delayed. Is the process of that.
Budget has to be passed by when?
We've already passed the budget.
Well, I know that, but when?
June
I know
June
we passed it.
30th. June 30th.
June 30th.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was asking. What date? I'm sorry.
Okay.
What date? Okay. So we wouldn't have much time to.
You wouldn't need to redo the budget that you've passed.
Okay, that's the
question.
key part of the
Yeah,
question.
that's the question.
And then the question of setting up a maintenance tax district. Could that process be started now? We've already closed out the dredging budget. So can we now move through the next stage of setting up the maintenance district?
You okay?
Maintenance dredging district?
You can.
You would establish a maintenance fund.
Another fund.
Right. Establish another fund.
It's a separate thing.
And then go through the process of doing it.
And along with that, we'll have to hire a consultant to determine the plan and the cost that will be assessed annually.
Thanks,
Tara.
Thanks, sir.
I go back to, I just keep going back, and all the little, not a ton of research, but the research I did with what previous council had done along the way. They had made some major decisions on this project, obviously, major decisions. They did them based on the knowledge they had. They did them based on what they thought was best for the town at that time, no question. What I've heard today, and I believe that, very, very strongly, and there were guardrails all along the way. You had the federal and state agencies watching over every move this town made, and the council knew that at the time, as they had to do, but they had some leeway, and the leeway was obviously in maintenance dredging, or navigational dredging, what kind of assessments would be done by property, by linear feet. They made those decisions along the way. They're big decisions, but they made them along the way. And I don't, and adding to that, what I heard today, and I really appreciate all the comments, because what I heard today was really some great opinions on how we should act in the future, how this dredging should be done in the future. And I've been impressed with what you said. I've got to have more notes here of ideas for the future than you can imagine, but they're for the future, and their opinions. And I think we have to move forward here, and we have to take that, what Lisa's talking about, that 2 or 3 years, we have to begin doing it again, and maybe we do, the maintenance dredging the next time. And with all your comments here today, we've got a list of great things that could happen, and how we move forward, and how we come together and move forward. Let's put it that way, come together and move forward. A lot of us weren't around when all this took place. As I said to you before, I only came about with the implementation stage and watched dredging and looked over dredging a little bit. But today, I think this town has taken a great step. I don't want to go back and, I don't want to go back and change all the decisions that council made before, because I think they made them with the best interest of the town in mind. But for the future, I think we have some great thoughts for the future. That's all. Thank you.
They won't allow it. Sorry.
I'm sorry. He just told you. He just told you. And that's whoa, that's whoop. No, that's it. No, I'm not going to talk. No.
Where you at?
Well,
go ahead, Mike.
I know. I put out a motion. I'm sitting before Mike, and I wasn't sure if he was going to second it or not. So I guess it's a dead motion.
I don't see that moving on with that motion is going to solve the past. I don't think it's going to solve the past as we hoped it, as you hope it will. I don't think it will. I think it'll just prolong things with a lot of questions and a lot of people giving opinions again. I think we need to move on from the past here and look to the future and set up the dredging district, get moving on the future. It may be within a year, start talking again about future dredging and move on to what you suggested and move on to a better relationship in setting up dredging for the future.
I think we looked at the past, and we can look to the future, but we're in the present.
Would it help council on this topic of calling a question? It seems to me that no one knows what a linear footage calculation would look like. And look, if council says, I don't care what the linear footage calculation looks like, I'm going to stick with the per parcel, then you need to call the question, let's move on, make a motion, get a second, and have a vote. If, on the other hand, it matters to you as to whether or not you want to do per parcel or revisit doing linear footage, then I feel certain that staff could have a calculation of the the differences on a linear footage by the July 14th meeting. And then, but again, July 14th meeting will be about what the difference is, right? But if then you're persuaded to go linear footage, we got to go back to square one and get this going that path. And it's,
I know, but that's the thing that I don't see any good being done by going back to the beginning. Can you ever please be quiet? Hey, enough. Come on, respect people talking. We listen to you. We did. Listen to us and what we do in public. We're not in the back room somewhere. We're not in the back room doing it like you think we do it a lot. This is how we do it. Come on. All right, going back to the beginning to me, I think is a disaster. I just don't think it's great. I think it will hurt. I think it just prolongs, but I want to think about the future. I'll move to confirm the role and direct staff to begin collection of the set assessment in accordance with the procedure established by law.
Do I have a second?
I had a question. Mike kept talking.
Go ahead with your question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, God.
I'd want to see the difference. How much would the town have to pay if we went to linear foot instead of parcel? There's one thing we all have to remember. There's 342 taxpayers.
303.
But the 3,000 people that live in the town, and we have to consider what they think too.
there's a
motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Moving on.
Mr. Mayor, I believe the last item is the closed session. I'm not sure if
No, it's not. We got two more
okay.
things that was added.
So much
6-4.
Steve. I'm gonna go to the restroom while they're filing out.
We just got these. We just got these two.
Okay.
Wait for a minute.
I tried. I gotta listen. Hate to say it.
What about me?
All right, 6-4.
Thank you. Well, you represent the other, actually 4,200 people in the town.
What about me? Hey, Gary, how would you? Okay, where are we?
Okay,
now?
I confess I'm lost here.
Yeah, same here.
We're going to 6-4, the resolution confirming the ownership of the town of Sunset Beach of the area westward of the West Main Street, SR 1177, and 40th Street intersection in the town of Sunset Beach. Each one of you has had them just a moment this morning because we just got these, but
yes,
you look over them and then let me know what your pleasure is.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
I read this. What would be your pleasure here?
I make a motion that we adopt the resolution.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on next, 6.5 is our resolution opposing the exploration and production of petroleum resources off the coast of North Carolina.
We have
Had one.
we have had this resolution going back a number of years. The most recent one was 10 July 2023. There is a movement in Washington to change from no leases for offshore dredging here to permitting leases to be sold for offshore dredging. Drilling. Sorry, I've been thinking the wrong way. Drilling. Thank you. And so there's a deadline of Monday to get our comments in support for the idea that we opposed the drilling offshore. And my proposal is just update the 2023 and send it in.
Reissue. Have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next up, we have possibility of closed session, yay or nay?
We
good?
put it on there as a placeholder. I don't believe there's anything pressing for us to cover in closed session.
Yes, sir.
So unless
All right.
somebody has a question about pending litigation or threatened litigation or anything like that, then I don't believe there's a need for it right now.
If there's nothing else, do I have a motion to close this meeting?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. All right.